Welcome back. I'm going to continue working the problem that's in the slides, and this time we're going to use Excel to look at the net present value. When we looked at the payback period, we said, well, we got an initial outlay of $10,000. Notice I made a little switch here. This is not a negative 10,000, it's a positive. But we have an outlay of 10,000, and then we have positive numbers going out again. This is how much we get in each of the periods going forward. Well, when we did the payback period, we got through 3 years plus a little bit of this, but it didn't count the rest of year 4 or all of period 5, right? There's a lot of money to be made out here that's not calculated or used in our payback period. So we want to find a way to include that. And the net present value is the way we do that. Net present value is calculated, and this is so important. It's the present value minus the initial outlay. Always, 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 when you hear net, subtract out the initial outlay. Remember, net means after you subtract something out. So anytime you're going to use net present value, subtract out the initial outlay. All right, well, let's calculate the present value. Well, we used to calculate present value for this kind of stuff using the present value, the PV function. But that meant all these amounts had to be the same, and they're not. Well, that sucks. Well, what could we do? One thing we could do is we could take the present value of that, plus 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 the present value of that. Well, that's bad enough if there's 5, but if I got 10 years or more, that gets to be a pain in the butt. So, fortunately, Excel gives us a little help, but it also gives us a problem. The help is there's a function called net present value. And to use it, you'll notice we need the rate and the values. So we have to put in the rate. I name the cell. Always name the cell, right? And the values I can get just by sweeping it out. Here's where the problem lies. Net present value doesn't give me the net present value. It just gives me the present value. Notice when I swept these out, I did from B through F. My future periods, I didn't include the initial outlay. Net present value doesn't really calculate the net present value. It's really useful for functions like this, where these numbers go up and down. If this goes out, 50 things, that's really a good thing to do. So it helps a lot, but it can also be confusing because, well, let me just do that. If I just do the net present value of this, it gives me a number of $17,000. But what about that initial outlay? I got to subtract that to get the net present value. So the net present value, I'll do the whole calculation. NPV of my rate minus my initial outlay. That makes more sense. Let me copy these two over. Space, enter. Those aren't C and G, that's a B. I'll change that so it's easy to see. B and F. And in this one, it'll be, wait. Oops, this one I want B and F. All right, so there's the formulas. I'm going to say it one more time and probably another half dozen times. The net present value does not calculate the net present value. It calculates the present value of future things. The value is that it allows you to do up and down non-uniform payments. When you hear the word net present value, subtract out the initial outlay, which in this case is that $10,000. I can calculate the profitability index. The profitability index, that's equal to, in general, right? Okay, so the profitability index is the present value. I should get rid of this. Equal to the present value divided by initial outlay. It's not a big deal. All it really does is tell you you want the value of the future money to be more than you put out. Right? You want this to be more than 1. It means you get more money than you put in. Let's calculate it. Well, this one I'm going to do the NPV, because again, that's the present value. I'll include the rate, and I'll include this, divided by my initial outlay, boom. And it's bigger than 1, so I'm going to do the project. And that's a B. And that's an F. All right. So I do this project. Well, let's work this problem one more time to show you how else you can do it. And I'm not doing this to confuse you. I'm doing this to show you that NPV is really present value. And there's other ways of doing this. Let's suppose this was really 2,000 every period. I'm going to work this 2 ways. I'm going to work it using the NPV function and the present value function. I'll do it up here just so I don't have to move things around. So if I said, let's use NPV, I'll use the same rate I was using. And I just swipe that out. I get a number. Correct that again. Oops. So you get a number. And we'll eyeball it. You see 2, 4, 6, 8. Well, it's not 10. Should be less because I'm discounting it by some rate. So yeah, that looks right. Let's do the same thing just using the present value. Here's where present value can help. I used the same rate. And notice I have a number of periods. Well, I have 5 periods. Let's just do that. And the payment is 2,000. And there's no future value. Voila. Well, it comes out negative because present value needs to have a negative thing in the formula. But I get the exact same number. That's because NPV does not give you the net present value. It just gives you the present value. Why would I use one or the other? I would use present value if all the numbers are the same. Why? It's just easier. Let's suppose I have 2,000 for 50 periods. Well, I'd have to have 2,000 out here 50 times. You know, if it just goes on for 50 years. I don't have to do that with this case. I don't have to put 50 in. I don't have to put 50 columns of data. I can just use the present value, say it's 50 periods of 2,000. So you can use either. If it's not uniform like these guys, I definitely want to use the net present value function. Either way, remember, you're getting the present value. To get the net present value, you have to subtract out the initial outlay. To get the profitability index, just take that present value and divide it by the initial outlay, and you'll be good. All right. I hope that was clear, and if not, you know how to get a hold of me and ask for help.